What if the thing destroying your life does not feel like pain, but pleasure? What if your prison has no walls, no guards, and no locked doors? What if it looks like a phone beside your bed, endless videos in your hand, fast food at midnight, cheap desire, and the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want? The most dangerous cage is not the one you hate. It is the one you learn to enjoy, defend, and call normal every single day. Most people imagine control as something brutal. A government watches you, a ruler threatens you, a system punishes you, and fear keeps everyone in line. That was the old nightmare. But Aldous Huxley imagined something far more disturbing, a world where people are not forced to obey. They are entertained into obedience, distracted from truth, and given enough pleasure to forget they were ever free in the first place at all. That is why his warning still feels so modern. In the modern world, nobody has to drag us into distraction. We walk there willingly. We wake up and reach for the screen before our thoughts can breathe. We scroll before we ask ourselves how we feel. We feed the mind with noise, the body with comfort, and the soul with tiny rewards. Then we wonder why silence feels so heavy, why focus feels so painful, and why peace feels like something we lost years ago without realizing it. It becomes invisible. This is not an accident. Every app, every notification, every infinite feed is designed to pull you back. The screen does not simply show you content. It studies you. It learns what makes you pause, what makes you angry, what makes you curious, what makes you weak. Then it gives you more of it, until your attention is no longer something you control, but something being harvested, packaged, and sold while you smile. And the transaction happens in silence. Huxley understood that a society can be controlled by giving people exactly what they want. Not what makes them stronger, wiser, or freer, but what keeps them passive. Give them comfort, and they will avoid hardship. Give them amusement, and they will avoid reflection. Give them pleasure on demand, and they will slowly forget the deeper hunger for purpose, discipline, truth, meaning, and real freedom, until their chains feel like preferences. That is the dark side of pleasure. It does not always ruin you quickly. It does something more subtle. It lowers your standards for life. It teaches you to choose what is easy instead of what is meaningful. It makes effort feel like suffering and boredom feel like danger. Over time, the person who once had dreams becomes someone who only wants comfort, escape, and another small reward to numb the day and avoid himself. This is how ambition dies quietly. Look around. Millions of people are exhausted, but not from building something great. They are exhausted from consuming. Consuming images, arguments, fantasies, news, products, opinions, and other people's lives. The mind was not made to carry an endless stream of stimulation. When everything is urgent, nothing is sacred. When everything is available, almost nothing feels precious or worth protecting anymore. The overload becomes the atmosphere. The modern system does not need to tell you what to think if it can control what you pay attention to. Attention is the gate to your mind. Whatever holds your attention long enough begins to shape your desires, your fears, your identity, and your future. That is why distraction is not harmless. A distracted person is easier to sell to, easier to influence, easier to confuse, and harder to awaken from the dream. The prison begins with the eyes, and the most terrifying part is that it feels like freedom. You can watch anything, eat anything, buy anything, say anything, chase anything, but a person ruled by impulse is not free. Freedom is not the ability to obey every craving. Freedom is the ability to choose what is good, even when something easier is calling your name. Without self-control, choice becomes another illusion wearing a beautiful mask. It feels personal, but it was programmed. Pleasure becomes a prison when it removes your ability to live without it. The first time, you choose it. The second time, you want it. The 100th time, you need it. This is how habits become chains. They do not appear as chains at first. They appear as relief, entertainment, escape, and comfort. Only later do you realize you cannot sit alone with your own thoughts without needing another hit to feel okay. The comfort starts demanding loyalty. The body adapts to constant stimulation. What once felt exciting becomes normal. Then normal becomes boring. You need more intensity, more novelty, more speed, more escape. This is the trap of easy dopamine. It raises the volume of life so high that ordinary things begin to feel lifeless. Reading, walking, waiting, praying, studying, creating, or having a real conversation with someone in front of you. Real life cannot compete with artificial intensity. That is why so many people feel restless, even when nothing is wrong. They are not lacking entertainment. They are lacking depth. They are not lacking options. They are lacking direction. The soul cannot be satisfied by endless consumption because the soul does not want more noise. It wants meaning. It wants to be tested, shaped, loved, and connected to something beyond comfort and temporary pleasure. Comfort can never replace a calling. Modern pleasure also trains us to avoid pain, but pain is not always the enemy. Discipline is painful. Growth is painful. Honesty is painful. Healing is painful. Building a better life is painful. But there is a kind of pain that makes you stronger, and a kind of pleasure that makes you weaker. Wisdom is learning the difference before comfort quietly steals your future and calls it relaxation. That is the lesson most people learn too late. This is where Huxley's warning becomes personal. The question is no longer whether society is distracted. The question is whether you are. What do you reach for when you feel lonely? What do you consume when you feel stressed? What habit do you defend even though it is draining your energy, your confidence, your time, your relationships, or your ability to think clearly and honestly about your life? This is not theory anymore. It is your daily routine. Nobody becomes a slave to comfort in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly, through small negotiations with yourself. Just one more video. Just one more hour. Just one more night. Tomorrow I will change. Tomorrow I will focus. Tomorrow I will become who I said I would be. But tomorrow keeps being sacrificed to the pleasure of today until the future becomes a place you keep betraying without noticing. And every delay has a cost. The way out is not to hate pleasure. Pleasure is part of life. Beauty, food, laughter, intimacy, rest, and celebration are not evil. The problem begins when pleasure becomes your master instead of your servant. A healthy life is not a life without desire. It is a life where desire has been educated, disciplined, and placed in service of something higher than impulse, escape, or convenience. Otherwise, desire becomes a dictator. To recover your freedom, you must recover your attention. Start with silence. Start with boredom. Start with 1 hour without the screen telling you what to feel. Let your mind become uncomfortable. Let your thoughts surface. At first, it may feel like emptiness, but it is not emptiness. It is space. And in that space, you may finally hear the parts of yourself that noise has buried for too long. That space is where freedom begins again. Then choose difficult pleasures over easy ones. The pleasure of finishing a workout, the pleasure of understanding a book, the pleasure of building a skill, the pleasure of deep friendship, the pleasure of keeping a promise to yourself. These pleasures are slower, but they leave you stronger. They do not drain your soul. They return you to yourself with more dignity, energy, and self-respect than before. This is how you rebuild your inner strength. The future will not be decided only by who has power, money, or technology. It will also be decided by who can still control their own mind. In a world built to distract you, attention becomes rebellion. In a world addicted to comfort, discipline becomes freedom. And in a world that sells pleasure as happiness, the most radical act is to choose meaning over escape and truth over anesthesia. This is the quiet revolution of the mind. So ask yourself before the next scroll, the next craving, the next easy escape: is this pleasure serving my life or stealing it? Am I choosing this, or have I been trained to need it? The cage is open, but nobody can walk out for you. The first step is not dramatic. It is simply looking at the thing you love too much and finally admitting, this may be the prison I have been afraid to leave. That admission is the beginning of escape.